Happy Thursday and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple with you every week here on Husker Online Headlines. And reminder, if you're not a member of HuskerOnline.com, check us out. We got a great deal for you right now over at Husker Online. You can get 2 months of access for $1. That's the best deal you're going to find. It's for our YouTube viewers and podcast listeners only. Simply use promo code NU1 to receive 2 months of Husker Online for $1. But Steve Sipple, we're in the thick of the off season.
Yes.
And headline one is it's going to be kind of a mash of Husker football off-season discussion. Tonight, you're going to be with me at St. Michael's, by the way. We'll have an event with Evan Cooper. We'll be there, as well as Marcus Satterfield. Ed Foley's going to be there, Vince Ginta. You'll get a chance, Sip, to meet some of the new transfer players. I'm excited about that, as we'll see both Isaiah Naor and Jamal Banks for the first time, Dante Daldell and Stephon Thompson. So that kind of headlines me off tonight, just the opportunity to kind of hear some stuff from the coaches tonight and get a chance to meet some of these newer players.
Yeah, who are the speakers?
Evan Cooper.
Okay.
And Marcus Satterfield and Vince Ginta with the recruiting.
Okay, Vince is going to speak.
On the recruiting film.
Okay.
So we got a crowd of about 500 people. 500 tickets already sold for tonight's event in Lincoln. So looking forward to that. But, with that said, the staff is set for Nebraska, at least the full-time 10. And, I think it kind of solidified itself. Number one, Glenn Thomas, we talked to him Monday. We now know his contract details. He'll make $800,000 as the co-offensive coordinator.
$800,000.
So
2-year deal, right?
2-year, yeah. Standardized 2-year deal. That brings the assistant salary pool to just around $6.8 million. Matt Rule, when he took the job, was granted $7 million, so he still remains under the cap. A year ago, he was far under the cap because Bob Wager was making $315, and now Thomas will make $800,000. And then Raiola got a raise. Tony White's received a raise, and then Tony White. We learned the news this week.
Yeah.
The UCLA job moved fairly quickly, and they stayed in-house with Deshaun Foster. Tony White had overtures this offseason from San Diego State, Syracuse, USC, UCLA, and it was kind of like the unicorn of jobs for Tony White. All 4 of those jobs made a lot of sense, but Nebraska's able to hold on to Tony White. They upped his pay $600,000 over the offseason.
Yeah, he had his defense was ranked number 11th nationally. So, he definitely earned a raise. Just to be clear, the USC job, that was a defensive coordinator position, not the head coaching position.
Which would have been probably similar pay to the 1.6 he's getting. Now, USC doesn't list their salaries.
The interesting thing, to me anyway, is you never know what to believe when you're reading about coaching searches. And I got to be honest, Sean, I probably didn't take this White to UCLA possibility seriously enough after hearing Matt Rule on Tuesday night on statewide radio. He talked to the UCLA AD, Martin Jarmond. Martin Jarmond is the AD, and he called Rule. It was, that indicates a level of seriousness. And Rule had the quote that I'm sitting here in February wondering if I'm going to lose my defensive coordinator. So it got serious, obviously. I don't think Rule would say, I'm sitting here in February worried about losing my defensive coordinator if there wasn't a level of seriousness. And then when you look at who they hired, Deshaun Foster, a running backs coach with no coordinator experience whatsoever, you would say White's probably got a better resume.
Deshaun Foster made $385,000 at UCLA last year.
Yeah.
That's like making $100,000 in Lincoln, Nebraska, by the way.
Right. So White's resume is probably better. That doesn't mean you don't pick coaches just straight up on comparing resumes. I know that it's a nuanced conversation. And the nuance in this case was the players made it very clear to the AD at UCLA that they wanted Deshaun Foster. The players, I think, my read is the players in this day and age have more say than than they've ever had in these coaching hires. Trent Bray wouldn't be the Oregon State head coach if the players didn't come.
Sharon Moore, Michigan.
Sharon Moore, exactly.
Like 5 years ago, if Jim Harbaugh left Michigan, would they have gone to Sharon Moore? It's hard to say, but
his chances would have been less.
Now Ryan Day is an example, and it's Ryan Day, Urban Meyer is the Tom Osborne kind of Frank Solich model, the Bob Devaney, the Tom Osborne model, where you have an established system with coaches in place. You don't want to blow that up. Alabama blew it up, and we've seen their roster blow up in the process.
Yeah.
Washington has blown it up. We've seen their roster blow up.
They can more afford it too than a place like Nebraska or UCLA.
Washington, though?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, you saw that FanDuel over-under is the same as Nebraska's.
And they played for the national championship.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, yeah, I guess Alabama's more so, Michigan's more so than Washington's. But a place like UCLA, if you blow that roster up, it's going to be really difficult because they don't have NIL money. Their NIL war chest is less than $1 million. It's, it's six figures.
According to a report from The Athletic.
Yeah. Yeah. According to The Athletic. So how do you build a roster?
You can't.
Quick. How do you build a roster quick?
I mean, to put that in perspective, like Stefan Wynn, when Nebraska brought him in, I'm fairly confident that was a 6-figure roster acquisition.
Yeah. And that was a reserve defensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So imagine having to find 20 players of that caliber.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right now UCLA couldn't do it. So if you're Martin Jarmon, their AD, you're looking at the situation saying, I don't think we literally can't afford to do that. We got to hire the guy. We got to probably hire the guy the players want.
And I think now going forward, it's so important for every team in college football to make sure there's another guy on their staff.
Yeah.
That's capable.
Good point,
Like
Sean.
Tony White, not saying Matt Rule's leaving Nebraska, but if Matt Rule, something ever happened and Penn State opened and you went to Penn State or something like that. I mean, that would, he played at
Penn
State.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have a guy right now in Tony White.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
You better have a guy ready.
I mean, there's a guy in Lawrence, Kansas that makes sense. I mean, but again, like with the way rosters blow up quickly in the NIL it's important that your collective is on the same page with everybody too. Because they control the paychecks.
God, it's interesting when you get to talking about it. It's really interesting. The NIL piece is critical. And what you said is critical too. You better have a guy on the staff that can do it, And with Deshaun Foster, you don't know. You don't know if he can't, but you sure don't know if he can. He's never done it.
Like Washington chose not to give the job to Will Grubb. And then Grubb went to Tuscaloosa
to be offensive coordinator
and left already to go back to Seattle.
Okay.
To be the Seahawks OC.
Seahawks, yeah.
The same job that Chip Kelly looked at. Now Chip Kelly's at Ohio State.
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Georgia State, by the way, lost their head coach to be a Power 5 assistant. So you're seeing that more and more now. I mean, North Dakota State's head coach is now not a coordinator, an assistant at USC. You're seeing head coaches at high group of 5 and FCS jobs leaving that job to be a Power 5 assistant, not even a coordinator.
Well, because there's more money.
I mean, when you can make $800,000 as a quarterbacks coach, non-play calling quarterbacks coach. I mean,
it's probably pretty appealing, right?
Yeah.
Interesting, Sean.
And then a couple roster things. One roster thing. Corey Collier moved on this week, and my understanding he's not been on the roster for over a week now, maybe 9 days. 10
Corey
days.
Collier, there's a name.
And I think he's not necessarily the story to me. It's just more. This is going to happen more and more when you kind of bring in these players on a flyer and don't have a great relationship with them. Some are going to work out, and some are not.
Right. He was, he got kind of close. Now, if you look at Collier's career, he played 2 years at Florida. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he played 2 years at Florida and never
redshirted in 1 year.
Yeah, never really made a dent. Then he came here and never made a tackle. Got in 5 games, never made a stop.
He started the spring game. That always got my attention.
It did.
Like when they technically had a 1 defense, he started the spring game. But I'll tell you 3 things happened. Deshaun Singleton.
That happened.
He got going.
That happened.
Omar Brown.
That happened.
Took a step forward. And then Tommy Hill, obviously, on the back end, kind of helped move things around. Then Marquise Buford came back.
Yeah, 4 things. So, yeah, you're right.
I mean, all those pieces kind of improved, and he wasn't able to beat those guys out. He's a double transfer. This is not one of those, since Matt Rule signed him, I don't think technically Matt Rule can offer him the retirement package. So he's not in the portal yet.
So he moves on.
He moves on. But I think you're just going to see a lot of that all the time in college football now. When you kind of do a speed when you're in a situation like Nebraska was in year one, kind of a speed dating recruiting. Some are going to work out, some aren't.
Yeah, it's kind of like I this is sort of harsh, but the way the roster's changed now, it's kind of like Y League basketball. It's just let's get a group of guys together and see if we can make this work. And it changes season to season.
Corey's good looking. He runs. He's got long length. He's from Florida. He's from Miami.
Yeah. Let's face it, he could play a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he'll find something somewhere.
I think so. Yeah.
It just didn't work out here, and I mean, they took Steve Sipple 10 defensive backs on the roster.
I know.
9 freshmen and 1 transfer, Bly Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the math. That's a lot. I mean, they essentially signed a basketball team in the secondary. 10 players.
Yeah, and some of those guys can move, but and then
they
also
probably would be a good basketball team too.
Yeah, the only other when we're talking about nuts and bolts, Rule was on radio on Tuesday, and he talked about the 11 a.m. kickoff for the spring game and how that'll be a Husker day for athletics, I guess, where the spring game is at 11 a.m. and you have softball and baseball. He talked about taking recruits to the softball and baseball and all that. He seemed enthusiastic about it.
It was his call.
Yeah. I'm sure he had to sign off on it. So there you go. That'll be a quick in and out for us, but it'll be a big recruiting day for
sure. And you said, speaking of nuts and bolts, takes me to my segue here before we get to headline number 2. I mean,
Sean,
all those years of radio, you've really mastered the segue.
Sometimes you just fall into it.
This headline on Husker Online Headlines brought to you by our friends at nuts.com. We've been with nuts.com here on Husker Online since last fall. Absolutely blown away by the products, everything they have to offer. And it's not just nuts. I mean, they have several pantry staples, different candies, chocolates, butter toffee pecans, pecan brittle, you name it. They've got tons of great things that you can order on nuts.com, and the prices are outstanding. It's, you're not overpaying for this product. They have a lot of things on there. We got a Christmas basket actually over the holidays here, and this thing lasted us for several weeks.
It did. It was excellent. There was few. I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting mix. I mentioned the apricots.
There's like 40 different things in there.
Yeah, the dried apricots were memorable for sure, and good. It was pretty, actually, in some ways, it was healthy too. But yeah, we attacked it pretty good. God, I mean, the cashews were ridiculous.
Whew. Well, and guess what? They're going to give you a free gift at nuts.com if you take advantage of the offer we have here. Go to nuts.com/Husker and you'll spend $29 and they'll give you free shipping, and they're going to throw in a free gift, which I believe is actually a free bag of cashews.
Oh, that's a good deal.
So they're going to give you a free bag or free gift, free shipping. Just spend $29 and you can get 3 or 4 items, $29, free shipping. They'll throw in a free bag of cashews as well. That's nuts.com/Husker. Thanks again to nuts.com for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. Let's take it to headline number 2. ESPN will control the college football playoff through 2031-32, as it was announced this week. Actually, The Athletic reported it. It's not been finalized, but it sounds like there were no other bidders, which is kind of surprising. They're getting at what appears to be a good price, $1.6 billion per year. Industry experts thought that it was valued at more, $1.9 billion, which leads you to believe maybe there wasn't the market of bidders. What I do find interesting, though, is ESPN will control the championship. And if you're a fan of the Big Ten, it kind of gets your attention, because guess who's not a part of ESPN at all? The Big Ten.
Yeah, Tony Petitti better watch that, right? This is the time. This is an interesting time of year, because we talk about all these. When I was in show preparation, you read these articles. It's such a weird, like, college football to me is so odd. I mean, you read about the college football management committee that's meeting, then the board of managers. I think it's the managers that vote first on the format and on the college football format, which hasn't been finalized, by the way. But the board of managers have to vote on it. Then it goes to the management committee. There's the college football commissioners that are involved. There's the college presidents. I mean, I guess the college football playoff executive director still Bill Hancock. I think that's changing
for now. The Air Force AD.
Yeah. It's these articles come off. They're so weird to me because there's all these boards and management teams and advisory boards. There are so many people involved that it's incredible.
Well, when there's $7.8 billion,
Yeah.
there's a lot of money to go
A
around.
lot of people are trying to get their hands in. So yeah, the playoff, it's going. So I mean, I think, Sean, if you walked over into the Haymarket and asked 20 people, what's the format for the college football playoff in 2024? I wonder how many people would know. They're going to vote for what is it, Sean? The 5 conference champions plus 7, the next 7 highest ranked teams. The next 7 highest ranked teams.
Because there's no more Pac-12. So the Power 5 is done. And
there's still a Pac-12. It's just the Pac-2.
Yeah, but they're not going to be recognized.
They vote.
They're not going to be recognized, though, as a conference champion.
No.
They'll be lumped in with the Mountain West. But, I mean, our independent, however you want to spin it. But the four
really knows.
The 4 power leagues, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC, the league winner will get a bye. So there is a lot of incentive to win your conference championship in the new playoff system because you don't have to play an opening round game. And then essentially at that point, then the other highest ranked conference champion, which would probably be the group of 5 team.
Right.
They could be, they'll probably be seated like the 12th or the 11th seed in the 12 team.
Then it's the 7 to fill it out. It's the 7 next highest ranked teams.
And that's where the SEC and the Big Ten could theoretically, I mean, they could get as many as 5 of those spots.
Yes.
I mean, they're probably going to get,
they're ranked that high.
They're probably going to get 4 of them.
See, it gets really interesting, right? Because Tony Petitti's talking about, Tony Petitti said something interesting to Adam Rittenberg. He wants to have meaningful late November games in the Big Ten. But he said in doing so, you might get a team
knocked out,
or you get a team that loses its 4th game and could still be in the playoff somehow. 4-loss team in the playoff, if it's ranked high enough, I guess. So, yeah, I think if you're a Nebraska fan, you would want the 5, what they call it, 5+7, as opposed to the 6+6, because then there's only 6 at-large bids. If you're in Nebraska right now, you want as many at-large bids as possible, right? You don't want the 6+6.
Like the Big Ten will get 3 every year, more than likely, and 4 could happen.
Yeah.
And the SEC is saying the same thing. We're going to get 3 every year, 4 could happen.
Yeah.
So that will be something to watch going forward. The thing I would have liked to have seen, and clearly it just didn't happen, but I would have liked to have seen multiple broadcast partners a part of the playoff, where kind of like the NFL, when Fox, CBS, ABC, ESPN, NBC, on like wild card weekend, everybody gets a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like why
is ESPN control?
Why does ESPN get all the games? It'd be like NFL playoffs. CBS got every playoff game. And why weren't they able to get it?
That's interesting, yeah.
But it just tells you maybe the ratings aren't there to overpay. I don't know why, because it would have made a lot of sense to have Fox, for sure, Fox involved, like where you do a rotation of things. But ESPN has such an inside knowledge of all this already that they know what they're doing, I'm sure, when they've kind of bid this out. And there is a chance that ESPN could sublease their inventory. So what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
If ESPN's having some money problems and wants to maybe make some money, they could sublease the property to Fox. Okay. And Fox could get a playoff game, or NBC could get a playoff game. Those networks would have to pay ESPN money, though, to pick up some of that inventory.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, all this aside and all my cynicism aside, the 12-team playoff should be wildly popular, right? I mean, you're going to have first-round games on campus, which will be incredible. So I'm looking forward to, I really am.
And they preserve the New Year's 6 bowl games in the playoff.
Within the playoff
And that was the key, because the New Year's 6 bowl games, like it or not, they are the mafia of college football. The Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys run stuff. Don't act like they don't, because they do.
The Rose Bowl, like executive director.
I mean,
president.
They call the shots.
Some of them. Some of the
shots. No, I mean the Rose Bowl.
And there's a lot of people calling the shots.
Their fixation of being locked in at 3:00 on New Year's Day, come hell or high water, was a big snag and everything.
I'm not arguing with you. It's just interesting when you say they call the shots. There's a lot of people that call the shots in college football.
Those bowl games were around before the championship and the playoff ever existed. Those were the championships, so they still have a huge voice.
Go ahead.
In the tradition and the history. So they were they were able to preserve those 6 bowl games as quarterfinals and semifinals. And I believe the Rose Bowl will always just be January 1. They're not interested in moving it on a different day.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They because that parade, they don't want to move. I mean, the Rose Bowl parade and the game, it's so synonymous together.
God, and it was beautiful this year. Alabama and Michigan in the Rose Bowl. It was in the scene. You know, you're watching on a big screen TV and it's just beautiful. I mean, I can't, I'm 58. I've seen all the 57 and I think I'm 57 and I've seen these games throughout the years and they still make a huge impression on me. And again, you got to cast aside all your cynicism about the way college football has become and just think about what that 12-team playoff is going to look like.
Right.
How fun that will be.
And they figured it out. There's going to be home sites.
Yeah.
There's going to be bowl game sites, and then there's going to be the national championship game site. So it's going to be cool when it's all said and done.
God, it will be. Yeah.
But ESPN will be the controlling kind of body of all this moving forward. Okay, let's take it to headline number 3. Husker basketball got some big schedule breaks here down the stretch. First of all, when you look, Sip, at that final stretch of games, there is no Wisconsin or Purdue or Northwestern or Michigan State or Illinois down the stretch. And their road games, I think particularly where we know Nebraska's not been a good road game team, Ohio State on the road, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more manageable. Chris Holtmann was fired.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think so. You never know. I was thinking about that driving over. My first impression is, it'll be easier. Maybe they didn't play for Holtmann, though. Maybe they'll play better for them.
Yeah, but what happens when a new coach comes in college basketball? Every player goes on the portal.
True. So they'll start looking around.
So a lot of those guys are going to have a foot out the door. They're probably being tampered with as we speak.
Probably. Gotta love that, right?
Michigan.
They're probably being tampered with as we speak.
And, I don't know what's going to happen with Juwan Howard.
Could get fired.
Or just leave to go to the NBA, but that picture doesn't look good right now.
No.
And you know where his whole tenure changed?
Where?
When he got in that little scuffle with Greg Gard.
Ooh, yeah.
I feel like Juwan Howard has not been the same since that moment.
I think he had some health problems.
And he's had health problems. You're right, no doubt. But that Greg Gard moment
that wasn't good.
I mean, where he
there's like a fight. It was not good.
How scared would you be if Juwan Howard is from Chicago?
Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. Guard seemed to handle it okay though.
You would stand your ground though. I know you well enough to.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but you're right about the schedule. I mean, come on, they caught.
And then Indiana. I mean,
yeah.
If they don't make the tournament, is he around? And they're not making the tournament, by the way.
Yeah, Woodson. Is he around? Have to look into it a little bit more. But those are, think about that. Think about Michigan and Ohio State being bottom feeders in the Big Ten. That's really odd. They had to get rid of Holtmann. They did. And man, just switching gears a little bit, if you look at the list of candidates, possible candidates that are being bandied about, I was reading the Columbus Post-Dispatch a little bit. Man, there's good candidates, really good candidates. And one's right down the road here.
It's an attractive job, too, because brand new president at Ohio State, our friend Ted Carter.
Yes, the Admiral.
And a new athletic director, Ross Bjork. So
coming in.
Whoever gets that job knows they're coming in on the front end of a new president and a new AD.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money, and the brand's good. So Greg McDermott is getting – listen, Greg McDermott, they I don't know. All I'm going to say is this: Gene Smith, before they hired Holtmann, flew a private jet to meet with McDermott.
McDermott turned it down.
Yeah, McDermott.
I mean, that was my understanding.
Yeah. So would he turn it down again if given a chance?
Because Creighton doesn't have Bruce Rasmussen anymore.
Right. Good point.
They have a newer president, newer AD.
Good point, Sean.
So it's a different lay of the land. I mean, Rasmussen was the steady hand at Creighton for years.
100%.
One of the most respected men in Omaha when he walked
in college basketball.
And I've met him over the years. He is a first-class individual.
Yeah, he was on the NCAA tournament selection committee, very well respected throughout college basketball. McDermott is in his 14th season at Creighton. he would be a very, very strong hire. He's 59 years old. Some people might say, why? Why would he leave? Better brand, new challenge. Ohio State's a bigger brand. Big Ten's I mean, the Big East is really good. Big Ten's is still a bigger brand. I wonder about it. I just wonder. And the other thing you wonder is, so they fire Holtman with 6 games left in the season. It's early. You're going to be talking to a lot of these guys during the season. And so I wonder if they can keep it under wraps.
I don't understand the urgency of why they had to do it now.
You might understand it because we just mentioned Michigan and Indiana. Maybe they wanted to get a jump, right? Maybe they think Michigan's going to open.
That Nebraska game for Michigan, that did not look good for them.
No, Sean, it looked awful. They're down. Michigan was down 43-13.
When Tominaga, I was reading the comments on the Wolverine, which is the On3 Michigan board, and they were like, "This is like peak all-time low." Just the way Tominaga was kind of just heat checking them with threes and
checking, shooting like, I don't know, off the 1 foot. It was a bad. It was a bad look for Juwan Howard. Great look for Nebraska. I mean, that is, you've said it. I think other people say it. Nebraska's like a top 10 team in PBA, and they look like
it's a hornet's nest to go in there.
Yeah, they look like a top 10 team. So who are some other names? McDermott is a great name. A great name is Dusty May at Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, Sean. You don't follow college basketball. But Final Four team last year, Florida Atlantic. 35-4 last year, 19-5. Is
DeVries on that list from Drake?
He would not be on for Ohio State. He would be for Creighton
or Iowa.
Yeah, I don't think DeVries. No, he's not on any list I've seen. But if McDermott leaves, who's the Creighton coach?
Well, Marcus Blossom, is that their AD at Creighton? I believe.
I think so.
He's going to have his own. I mean, he's not connected to like.
True, but wouldn't DeVries make a lot of sense?
That's who probably the people would want.
Drake,
and his son's finishing up at Drake here.
McDermott, Nate Oates is mentioned, and of course Buzz Williams.
God, he leaves all the time.
Yeah, bro. Ross Bjork was the AD at A&M. Buzz Williams is at A&M. Buzz Williams has been to 3 Sweet 16s with 2 different teams, and he took, or probably 3 different teams, because he took Virginia Tech. No, 2 different, Virginia Tech and Marquette. He took Marquette to the Elite 8. So Buzz Williams would make sense. If it were me, it would be either McDermott or Dusty May. That's who I'd go with. That's who I'd lock in on. McDermott or Dusty May.
So that's something to watch. That Ohio.
One other, Lamont Paris at South Carolina. Lamont Paris has ties. Ohio ties. I think he has some Ohio State ties. Lamont Paris is at. He's a former Wisconsin assistant. He's 21-3 at South Carolina. 21-3.
You are brushed up on. I mean, do you work for the Fan in Columbus, Ohio, or the Ticket in Lincoln, Nebraska? Because you're brushed up on Ohio State's coaching search.
I am really interested in it.
You doing some fill-in hosting at the Fan in Columbus?
I'm really interested in it because it's a big time program that should be good, and they will. And it's a hire that could affect our little world here. Because if McDermott leaves, I think Fred would be happy.
Trev probably would be too. Penn State. Let's get to Saturday. 11 a.m. game here. Teams had the week off, so that's the first time they've had that all season.
Yeah.
But at home, it's just so hard to see Nebraska not coming out ready to roll because that crowd won't let them play bad at home. I mean, the Creighton game's the outlier of the group, but they've played so well at home, and then they got to go on the road, Indiana, then they're back home again, Minnesota on a Sunday. Which Nebraska seems to be the king of those like 5:30 at night Sunday games.
Yeah, Penn State will be much. I think they'll be much better in Michigan, but you just feel so good with the way Nebraska plays at home. In Nebraska, I say it all the time. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. They're dangerous on the road. I don't totally get into they're terrible on the road. They weren't terrible at Illinois. They haven't been terrible. They weren't terrible at Rutgers. They lost in overtime. The Illinois game is what swung me because they played really well against a team I think is really good in an environment that's really tough. Nebraska is a good team. You don't get up 43-13 against any Power 5 team without being really good. They are a very dangerous shooting team. There you see one guy right there, Welcher, dangerous shooter. Casey's a dangerous shooter. Rink is a dangerous 3-point shooter. Williams, Bryce, dangerous 3-point shooter. They got guys. They bring Sam Koiberg off the bench. He's a tough player. You can't say anything at this point other than Hoiberg's really valuable. So they're
going to so much energy to the arena.
Yeah, he does. He really does. It would shock me if they lose to Penn State. I wouldn't even know what to think if they lost to Penn State.
All right. Let's go headline number 4. And
what's that, Sean?
I'm going to shift gears to some volleyball here because there's a few things of note.
Oh, my God.
The power of Nebraska volleyball. Team USA may be moving their entire operation to Gretna.
It's amazing.
I mean, think about that. Like,
I have. It's amazing.
Like, Team USA could just leave the Southern California area, which John Cook called the current facilities abysmal.
He did. They're in Anaheim. He said the USA volleyball facilities, abysmal, shocking. In California, something's abysmal.
Now, Rod Yates, the developer of the Nebraska Crossing, who's also the primary NIL supporter of Husker volleyball.
Rod Yates.
He gave $5 million for Husker volleyball.
That's right.
And so you have to think he kind of had a master plan of, getting behind Nebraska volleyball, getting things rolling the year they've had. Now let's go for this. And John Cook's clearly heavily involved in this as well, because talk about the ultimate coup. The USA volleyball operation, their entire staff, training facilities, players would live in Gretna.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, and it's close too. I mean, according to the news reports you saw, I saw. I mean, this deal is close to being done. So yeah, for me, it was out of the blue. I had no idea they were talking to you.
Like I thought Luann Linehan's quote was really telling. She's like, "Look, this land's going to get developed no matter what. Do we want 10 truck stops and strip malls or this?" I'm like, yeah, I think
not a bad point.
We don't need like 5 more big truck stops there.
Mm-hmm. So this is what people for the uninitiated, we're talking about Nebraska Crossing, that shopping center, that area between Omaha and Lincoln. So it's kind of a perfect area.
And there was an outlet mall there for years, and that original concept went dead. And then Rod Yates and that group have developed that thing into a very, very nice area there.
And there's a way to do this that you would be more in tune with than me, using sales tax to incentivize these operations, to build
housing and
yeah. So yeah, monster development.
Well, and think about like if Team USA, starts playing, then they would, all right, we're going to have exhibition game, or our primary home for exhibition competition is going to be in Omaha.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. I mean,
yeah, so Cook did something very smart, brings members of USA Volleyball to Volleyball Day in Nebraska, which drew 92,000 people. I'm sure that sold them pretty well. Again, I fully expect it to happen. So Nebraska volleyball benefits. I mean, it benefits in intangible ways, but it benefits. You're going to have 100 of the best players training right down the road.
Well, if John Cook ever retired as a coach at Nebraska, I'm guessing there'd be a nice job for him as well with Team USA in Gretna. It'd be a pretty good fit for him.
Pretty much whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants. You're right. I mean, he almost could have been the AD at Nebraska if he wanted. He could have done about anything.
I think he might have wanted that. But they definitely talked to him.
Yeah, the schedule also came out for 2024.
2024
for Nebraska with the new teams in the Big Ten. The teams that Nebraska will play twice: Wisconsin, which makes sense for the value of that matchup, Iowa and Illinois. So Nebraska will play those 2 teams twice. Coming into the Devaney Center, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA, and USC.
Okay.
So I'd imagine UCLA and USC would be like on the same weekend. My guess is they'll travel and play Iowa, Nebraska on the same weekend. Huskers will go on the road to Maryland, Michigan State, Northwestern, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Washington. And tell you what, that Big Ten, it's going to be brutal, that schedule.
Well, the Big Ten always is.
I mean, it got even harder with those teams that they've added to this conference. But let's take it into our final headline of the show. Headline number 5. Husker baseball season is upon us, Steve Sipple, and the Huskers are going to play in the Dallas area in Arlington. They're going to take on some elite competition, and this has kind of been what they've done a lot over the years. They kind of play above their weight class early to kind of see how they can hang. And then, so it's hard to have big expectations. They open with Baylor, number 21 Texas Tech on Saturday, and then Oklahoma on Sunday. So they'll play 3 games at the Shriners Classic College Showdown at Globe Life Field, and then they'll come back and play they'll play the next week a 4-game series in Phoenix against Grand Canyon.
So the thing you look at right away in trying to evaluate a team is its pitching, in my opinion. And Nebraska's strength as a pitching staff, Sean, looks like the bullpen to me. Now, what are those starters? How are they going to look right out of the gate? I mean, these are the names to remember, okay? Right-hander Brett Sears, who turns 24 in May. I mean, this is an older gentleman. 5.29 ERA last year, though. I mean, I don't know. I mean, kind of an unknown is Brett Sears in terms of being your Friday night starter. Will Welsh is a lefty. He'll start against Texas Tech. He's the second starter, 4.24 ERA last year. He was a Sunday starter for part of the season last year. And then another left-hander, Caleb Clark, is the third starter. And Sean, all these guys pretty much got into the starting rotation based on off-season performance. Caleb Clark had a 13.24 ERA last year. He didn't get it based on what he did last year in 17 innings. So then there's Drew Christo, who's not in the rotation but is in the mix. A big righty.
You're really banking on the Childers factor right now.
Oh, yes, you are.
Like,
good point.
You're hoping that
good point.
The magic Jabba Chamberlain wand of 06 just kind of hits a couple of these kids.
That'd be great. That's a good point, by the way.
I mean, you
trust Childress, right?
Like, you're bringing in you think about, like, when Childress got to A&M. Now, Clayton Kershaw never ended up coming, but his, like, initial group of pitchers he signed at A&M were Clayton Kershaw and Michael Walker.
Good God.
I mean, he knows what he's doing.
He does. So that's a good point. That helps. Now, Will Bolt, the Nebraska head coach, Nebraska's missed the NCAA tournament the last 2 years. I'm not saying there's a lot of pressure on him, but it'd be good to get back in the tournament. His Big Ten record's 56-35, which is, that's 6-15. That's not bad. It's a 6-15.
It's those midweek games. Like,
those have hurt a little
you have these, you have to dance with that RPI every year.
Yeah.
And when you lose to, like, North Dakota State on a Tuesday,
don't lose
it just destroys you.
Don't
like,
lose that.
I mean, that's like, they have to, the Van Horn teams, like, you knew they were going to win those games, like, by a lot, and they would develop and play a lot of players.
Yeah.
Or here, like, recently, those games have been,
a little too close, right?
Nail biters.
Yeah.
And
a little too close. And they don't have the type of team here. It doesn't look like, Sean, that they're a dominant type, that they're going to go dominate many people. They return one. Cole Evans is the team's only returning 300 hitter that hit for the 300 for Nebraska last year. Cole Evans is a good player. The lineup, I looked at the projected lineup, and it is okay. I mean, it's fine. Nebraska's picked 5th in the Big Ten.
Nebraska had
fifth.
3 players on the Big Ten watch list: Dylan Carey, Gabe Swanson, and Will Walsh.
Dylan Carey,
those
Gabe
are
Swanson.
On paper, they're 3 top players, but the Huskers were picked in the official coaches poll. They were picked 5th.
Okay.
Teams ahead of them: Iowa, Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers. Guess who plays all 4 of those teams in weekend series this year?
Really?
Nebraska.
Okay, good.
So they will play a series. I mean, that's going to be telling too, because what will their record be in those 12 games will be kind of how their season is defined, because they have 3-game series against Iowa, Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers. Now, Michigan's picked 6. They don't play the Wolverines.
Okay. So, it all starts off in Arlington, Texas this weekend. So they play, again, to repeat, Baylor on Friday, Texas Tech on Saturday, and OU, I think, on Sunday. So those are the teams.
Now, they do have Big Ten series with Northwestern and Minnesota. And you would like, those are sweep opportunities. Unless those teams have just decided to sign a bunch of new players we don't know about. But last year, those 2 teams are obviously two of the worst in college baseball.
Well, Northwestern had some problems. They fired half the staff before the season.
They had like a student coach, pretty much.
Well,
not really,
but they had maybe assistants. They had that going on, but it was a mess. Northwestern was
Northwestern their whole year last year.
Was a mess.
Well, and that thing with Fitzgerald, that's going on. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
if they settle out of court, I think they'll end up settling. Is my guess.
Oh yeah, he's
going to get a lot of money.
Yeah, millions. And
then he'll be coaching somewhere.
Yeah, I'd say minimum of $10 million is what he'll get. I think he's asking for 120. Don't quote me on that on a podcast.
I wonder what kind of job Fitzgerald would want to get into. If you want to be like a head coach again, if you get it, or just be like a coordinator or somebody.
I would guess head coach. I mean, he doesn't strike me as a guy who wants to work for anybody. He was pretty good. It got out of hand, and I'm not even talking about the controversy. I'm talking about they weren't winning games with him at the end. So, but he must have left them in pretty good shape because they were pretty good this year.
Yeah.
But
somehow we turned our baseball conversation
into a Fitzgerald conversation. Anyway, so yeah, baseball. It's kind of nice that baseball's starting.
Yeah, and softball, Jordy Ball obviously out for the year, ACL. So big change of that season.
They'll be in New Mexico this weekend. So they have some games in New Mexico. It'll be interesting to see what the level of interest is like now compared to what it would have been. You hope, I don't know. It just can't be as much, right?
No, I mean, you lose kind of like your lead actor.
And what to expect from them now? I'd still expect they've been, Nebraska softball's been to NCAA regionals each of the last 2 years. I think they're good enough to get back. Again, when you look at softball, you look at baseball, you look at pitching, and we'll just have to see what they have on the mound now.
Husker basketball loses on the women's side. Ohio State handled them on the road, by the way, this week on that end. And, coming off that Iowa win Sunday. So kind of an up and down week where they knocked off number 2 Iowa, but then a top 10 team in Ohio State beat them by, over 30 points.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. It was like 80-47. I mean, it was like, it was a blowout.
Well, that's a tough thing to come off of playing Iowa. But that was memorable. That was memorable.
Let me get that score correct here.
Get the Ohio State score.
Where am I at here? Women's basketball. Where's the scores at? Yeah, they lost 80-47. So 33 points.
Yeah, ouch. But still, great win against Iowa and Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had 31 points. I think needs 8 to set the all-time scoring record.
They have a favorable 4-game stretch: Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, Illinois.
Yeah, it's favorable.
So they no ranked teams. So over their final 4 games, they could go 3-1, 4-0, and they're going to get in the tournament.
Looks like it.
They are.
Yeah.
Their net rankings in the top 30. So
looks like it.
Lots to keep up on. HuskerOnline.com. It's kind of that time of the year where we have that spring football. There's always that time of year where you have March Madness, spring football, baseball, softball, all at one time. We're not there yet, but we're close.
Mm-hmm. Spring football starts March 24th?
March 24th on Sunday.
March 24th is what we're marching towards.
But I will see you tonight at St. Michael's.
Yeah, probably.
You better be there.
I'll try.
All right. Now you're giving me some bad vibes.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
Sean. You look good in your sweater, though. I wanted to say that.
Make sure you stay on HuskerOnline.com. Take advantage of our great special. 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off for another edition of Husker Online Headlines.